Hello. Thank you guys so much for clicking this podcast today. I really appreciate it. Today we're going to be talking all things Occam. We're going to be going over Occam X, the Occam Launchpad. And if you guys do enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you click the like button and comment it down below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. We also have a Discord server. It's discord.gg/bigpay. And any questions you have about Cardano and Occam or anything else in the ecosystem, feel free to join the Discord server and ask us. But today I have Elliot Hill, and he's actually the head of communications for Occam. How are you doing today, Elliot?
Hey, Big Pay, it's really great to join you. Love your podcast. Been waiting to come on for a while and chat to you about what we're building at Occam. So as you said, I'm head of communications at Occam. I formerly worked at the Cardano Foundation, and I've been in the Cardano ecosystem since 2017, since launch. So it's a really exciting time to see this proliferation of dApps on Cardano, and can't wait to talk about some of the projects that we're bringing to the ecosystem.
For sure, 2016 is a long time.
Yeah, so like 2017, like pretty much when the token launched is when I got involved, and
That's
you can
awesome.
scroll back if you're dedicated enough and see some of my first posts on the forum in 2017 on the Cardano forum, where I absolutely didn't know what I was talking about at all. And
Me
it's been
either.
a it's been a long road. Yeah, so I remember pestering. I think it was one of the really early guys at the Cardano Foundation for a job all the way back then in 2017. And yeah, it was an honor to start working with Cardano. Did a year at the foundation and then just wanted to move on and see what else was going on in the ecosystem. And as Occam launches a lot of projects, it seemed like a really good place to really get involved with the growth of the Cardano ecosystem.
That's awesome to hear. What is Occam for people that have never heard of Occam before?
Yeah, sure. So Occam is it's a lot of different things really. So it's we call it a DeFi, like full stack DeFi ecosystem. But really what we do is we have Launchpad capabilities. We're building out our DEX capabilities, which we'll talk to a little bit later, and you can see the logo behind me there. And we also have the Accelerator program, which is an incubator for Cardano projects. So probably the one like vertical or component that most people may already be familiar with is Occam Razor. This is a decentralized launchpad. So decentralized launchpads launch projects that are building on multiple blockchains, but for us the focus is specifically Cardano. So we take early stage Cardano startups and projects. And we help them through that initial phase where they're raising funds and looking to launch a token. So, I mean, we did implement originally on Ethereum, so our smart contracts are Solidity based. So the majority of tokens that we've launched to date have been ERC20, but we're really proud to say that starting with Ardana, which was one of, I think, the most hotly anticipated projects on Cardano to date, we can now do and issue tokens in Cardano native tokens. So we're getting
That's
closer and
awesome.
closer to building out like this launchpad capability tailor-made for the Cardano ecosystem.
So with Ardana, could people actually use Occam's site, to participate in the IDO with ADA?
So unfortunately, yeah, we still had to have that component of it in Ethereum. We are building out at the moment. We're building out the Plutus smart contracts to allow us and to allow our users to contribute ADA. So our Plutus developers are in the Plutus Pioneer program. These components are already being built. But they could contribute ETH, but then they would get their tokens distributed to them as Cardano native
Oh, so in their
tokens.
Cardano address. Okay, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
so they
So
link their Cardano address to it, and it's the first time that an IDO did this in the Cardano space. Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that you guys are making that transition, and smart contracts were just launched recently, so it does make sense that you guys are just using Solidity and the tools that were already out there, to raise those funds, and then now you're transitioning over to Cardano. So, let's say that time comes, your Plutus pioneers are killing it. They know all the Plutus they need, and you can build out this full site. Are you guys still going to have, an Ethereum Launchpad over there? Or are you going to be full Cardano in the future? Are you going to have both?
So, as some of the viewers might know, we have the Ethereum to Cardano bridge. So, part of our mandate since we launched, and we're backed by official Cardano entities. But what we really want to do is bring value from the Ethereum blockchain and move it over to Cardano and facilitate that process. So that was part of the reason we launched the bridge. We probably will have the option to contribute to IDOs with ETH in the future, but we think it's great, that people can contribute in ETH. That turns into Cardano native tokens, and then that's locked within the Cardano ecosystem. So effectively, we're going to serve as like a bridge to take Ethereum and give it to new projects building on Cardano, and then it's part of the Cardano ecosystem rather than the Ethereum ecosystem. So we probably will leave that dual functionality open for a while. But we do want to be, and we always have been since we launched, like a dedicated Cardano launchpad. So we are going to have all of our components available on Cardano as well. And also it's an absolute, like 100% you have to be building for Cardano to launch a project with us. We've just reiterated our stance on due diligence around the projects that we bring. And if they can't show that they have adequate components or adequate provision in their roadmap to build for Cardano, they don't make it to our launchpad. So that's something we feel really strongly about, and it's something that we're going to focus on even more in the future.
Okay. Yeah. I just personally would prefer to use a DEX, or not a DEX, but a Launchpad on Cardano because of those TX fees. I mean, I still use Ethereum for stable coins, USDC. We're waiting for all of this to be built out on Cardano. And, I withdrew from an exchange the other day and it cost me like $180. And it's just the cringe, man. The cringe.
Yeah.
You know.
It's painful, and we don't like to pass these costs on to our users. It's one of the biggest. Not criticisms, but comments that we have at the moment is the gas fees are really significant, especially if you only want to buy a small portion of IDO tokens from a pool. Sometimes the fees can be as much as you actually want to contribute.
Yeah. So you
And we're
really have
looking
to
and
have a certain amount of money for it to even, be worth it because of the TX fees.
Yeah, and we're exploring all different ways to reduce these TX fees and reduce the reliance on Ethereum, reduce the reliance on gas. One of those in the short term, before we roll out the smart contracts on Cardano, maybe exploring other blockchains that implement in Solidity, such as Binance Smart Chain or something like that, just so that we can minimize these costs for our users and then help issue Cardano native tokens, which is obviously super cost effective because the transaction fees are so low.
Yeah. So what are some of the projects using the Occam Launchpad that you're most excited about? You mentioned Ardana. Are there any others?
Yeah, sure. So we recently had Ardana, and that was our biggest IDO to date. So I think we had around 2,000 participants. It was absolutely crazy. It sold out really quick, and we're super excited to see what they build in the coming months. And a project that we just announced today as well is NewNet. So they're a project sponsored and built by the team over at Singularity Net, who obviously work really closely with IOHK. And they're a decentralized computing infrastructure project. So they're going to make computing power available, via the blockchain and via AI to use in a decentralized manner. So say you've got some spare computing power that you don't have any use for, you can potentially monetize that through NewNet and share those resources out via, the Cardano blockchain. One of their advisors is Ben Goertzel. All the rest of the team over at Singularity Net, they're like advisors, so it's a really all-star team, and they're going to be launching as an Occam IDO on the 25th of November. So we're really, really excited for them. We've also got Ycrypt towards the end of the month, and we've got Centurify as well, which is an NFT ticketing project. They were unveiled at the Cardano Summit in Norway, and they're going to bring like NFT ticketing options onto the blockchain so that you've got programmability and like event tickets. And they've got some really cool guys behind them, including like big music artists and this sort of stuff. So we're excited to bring them as well. They're on the 16th. So yeah, we've got quite a few IDOs coming up, and plenty more to announce for the rest of this month.
That's awesome to hear an update on NudeNet. Ben Gortzel actually mentioned it on the podcast that I had with him, and my first thought was about Stakepool operators and how you can essentially run like a decentralized relay node or a decentralized stake pool. Of course, one person's still controlling it, but the computing hardware could be distributed. Which is a very cool idea and a very cool project. I'm not sure what latency or other technical barriers there are for running a stake pool there, but it's definitely something I'm excited about. So can you explain the ETH to ADA bridge a little bit more? What tokens can you bring over, and how does that process really work?
Sure, yeah. So the ETH to ADA bridge is something that we developed pretty early on in our history, I guess. So we basically made it because we wanted to give Cardano enthusiasts a way to hold our token as a Cardano native token if they chose to. So it was one of our early commitments to showing that we actually were seriously building for the Cardano ecosystem. So we issued a counterpart amount of OCC tokens as Cardano native tokens, and when you use the bridge to send your Ethereum-based tokens over to Cardano, it locks up that amount of Ethereum tokens and issues them as Cardano native tokens. So the circulating supply of our OCC token always stays the same, but you can hold those tokens in OCC ADA. So eventually they're going to be the only token that's used within our ecosystem once we launch our components on Cardano. At the moment, obviously, we don't have the smart contracts there in order for those tokens to be useful, but what they can be used for is generating rewards for our upcoming DEX token, which is only going to be issued as a Cardano native token. We're looking at expanding that functionality to other projects that launch to us. So like we mentioned, Ardana just launched and distributed a Cardano native token. They already had that sorted out because they've been, a Cardano-based project since day one. But say there's a project which is perhaps they want to launch like a multi-chain launch or something like this. We hope that we can use the bridge to give them that option and give them that functionality of launching both an Ethereum token and a Cardano native token at the same time. So again, it's just part of our mandate of bringing value into the Cardano ecosystem. Even if projects haven't necessarily thought about building on Cardano, we offer them an easy way that they can issue assets on Cardano and make that, once DEX is alive, any DEX, make that tradable within the Cardano ecosystem.
So currently, Occam is really the only token you can bring over using the bridge.
Yeah, at the moment it's OCC. We also have I think ADA to ETH you can swap on there as well. But it's going to be a lot more useful. We have a wrapped.
That's interesting.
We have a wrapped ADA version, so you can use some liquidity mining protocols on Ethereum using ADA. So you can go vice versa if you want. You can go both ways. But this will have a lot more functionality once our DEX components are rolled out, and it'll be a lot more obvious what it's actually useful for, which is easily swapping and increasing interoperability between the two blockchains.
That makes me think of what Charles Hoskinson said in The Island, the Ocean, and the Pond. He said for the masochists out there, that want to use their ADA with Solidity. But no, that is awesome to hear that you can actually, use what you guys are offering to bring ADA over to ETH and back and forth, because I haven't heard of many other projects doing that. And it's also really nice, to be able to have OCC in your own wallet on the Cardano blockchain, because if I want to, get SDAO or other tokens that are on Ethereum that'll eventually come, I still have to keep them in my ETH wallet,
Mm-hmm.
So it's awesome to hear that you guys have essentially solved that.
Yeah, you could have OCC as a Cardano native token in your Daedalus, Yoroi, card wallet right now. So yeah, there's no limit. You can hold as much of it as you want. And we are really, really pushing to bring those components that are going to make that useful. So now smart contracts are here. We're all hands on deck building out those Plutus smart contracts to enable our DEX and Occam Razor. Yeah,
for sure. What services do you guys offer for accredited investors in the United States? When I was using your website, I noticed that there was a portal, that allowed you to, essentially accredit yourself.
Yeah, it's a good question. So obviously we're like a decentralized launchpad, but we still make our users go through KYC. This is not only to protect the projects that we bring through our launchpad by only connecting them with investors who've been shown to be like financially safe, not involved in any like money laundering operations or anything like that. But it also helps protect our users, by only bringing quality participants into the ecosystem. So obviously, if we've got someone who maybe has been involved in financial crime in the past, they're not a good token holder to have because they're probably not going to be an honest actor. So we do have to make everyone go through KYC. Now in the US, because of the regulations and the laws there, it's different to how we do things in Europe, and we're based in Switzerland. So we can only accept accredited investors in the US. So that's an investor who can prove like a certain, either a certain maturity as an investor or a certain net worth. And this is according to obviously like the financial regulators in the US. There has to be a minimum bar to prove that you're, I guess, like not responsible enough to trade is the wrong word, I think. And unfortunately, it's not very in keeping with the decentralized ethos.
Yeah, it just
But
kind of keeps the
yeah,
poor people out. Is really.
yeah, and
I
I
think
mean,
it's a million
obviously,
USD in liquid net worth, but I agree with you. I see both sides. A lot of my friends that are just getting into crypto or, going all in on Dogecoin, so I kind of see both sides of it, but I wanted to ask you about that specifically because I think it's awesome that you guys offer that service, as someone in the United States, we can't participate in IDOs or buy world mobile tokens or, any other tokens that people are selling. So the fact that you guys offer this to accredited investors, I think is really smart. And also as a U.S. citizen, I appreciate that.
yeah. So I think there's a like I'm not sure exactly what the definition of accredited is. Like it changes according to the KYC provider.
Mm.
Um, so there is. It's always worth, I would say, like trying to apply for that if you're like a US investor and you have a certain net worth. But unfortunately, yeah, it is somewhat limited by net worth. Whereas here in Europe and some of the other jurisdictions that we serve, you just have to do a liveliness check. So you have to prove that you're alive. You have to prove that you've got proof of residence, and you also have to prove that you're not involved in any like financial blackness and this sort of stuff. But your net worth is your net worth. Like it doesn't matter if you want to contribute a pound or £10,000 here in the UK. You don't have to have a minimum net worth. And I hope that, I mean, this is probably going off on a tangent a little bit, and this isn't anything to do with us or anyone in the crypto space, but I do hope that the bar is lowered a little bit for US investors to become accredited. Because now that we have such like an open financial system through blockchain, we should open it up a little bit more to new investors.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been very limiting, to me personally. The only way you can get things is on the secondary market. But hopefully, or maybe not hopefully, the inflation may make that bar a little bit lower, unless they just raise it on us, the next day. So we talked about it a little bit earlier, but what is Occam X?
Sure, yeah. So Occam X is a newly built, well, we're building out the components right now, decentralized exchange that's tailor-made for Cardano. So it's basically going to be like your Uniswap or SushiSwap, but for Cardano tokens. It's one of the projects that we're putting all of our manpower behind at the moment. So all of our Plutus devs are working on Occam X. The first milestone for Occam X is going to be our public beta, which we hope to have with our community really shortly. Probably looking at early Q1 2022. Seeing as we're pretty much halfway through November already, this time has flew by.
I know this
But
whole
we
year's felt like 2 months almost.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah, but we recently launched our Occam X landing page. So we introduced our mascot, who's a little monk. Obviously, Occam, the real guy, he was a monk in like the 15th century here in the UK. And so we've got our little mascot, and we've also released our roadmap. So our roadmap's important because we've got a few different phases which people are going to see first. So uh, we've already released like our solution, or video of our solution for the concurrency problem. So we've shown that we can make simultaneous transactions on the same block, and we do this by an intra-slot block auction. So part of it is settled off-chain, but we're working to make this fully decentralized. So that's available to view now on our YouTube. It's had quite a few views already, but it's really short video. It's worth checking out. It just shows with the TX hashes, that we've processed these two simultaneous transactions. So we've done that. That's the back end stuff. But the first thing the users are going to see is the public beta. So the situation that I think the whole of the Cardano blockchain is in, and every DApp building at the moment is, we're all building towards these live DApps. But it's still such a new ecosystem and a totally new, coding language through Plutus. So one of the things we're really keen to do is have a long public beta testing period. So we're looking for around a 2-month long public beta. And this is because, Plutus as a smart contract language hasn't really been tested before in like a live environment. We're already looking for audit partners as well, but obviously like with Solidity smart contracts and contracts, implemented on Ethereum, you can go to Certic, you can order an audit, and it'll be there in like a week or 2 weeks or something like that. But on Cardano, with the Plutus smart contracts, there's a lack of auditors at the moment. So we're working with a couple of, high-profile Plutus developers to look through our code and make sure that we're doing things properly. Then after we've done that public beta and after we've got these Plutus audits, then we'll release the full live launch. But the critical focus for us is making sure that it's safe, making sure that users can have an enjoyable experience on the DEX. So a lot of people have asked if we're going to be first, but what we say is we're going to be, the best. We'd rather focus on a minimal lovable product rather than just shipping an MVP that might not be an enjoyable experience to use. So that's the phase at the moment. You can head over to our landing page, which is where we've got our full roadmap.
I'll have that link down below for anyone curious.
So yeah, we're just working on back-end components and rolling out. One of the things we're working through at the moment, and we did a technical article on it a couple of weeks ago, is the block size limit. So obviously all transactions on Cardano have a transaction size limit, byte size limit, sorry. And this is, if we're going to use the concurrency solution that we have to lump transactions together so they can be processed in the same block, we also need to make sure that they're under that byte size limit so that they can be processed on Cardano. Our devs would probably tell you in more detail, but yeah, that's one of the things that we're working through at the moment. Some of the things that IOHK are working on, like Mythril and this sort of thing, are going to be highly useful for us and probably allow us to come online with our components a bit faster. So we're keeping a close eye on that as well.
Can you explain what Mythril is?
So I know that, I've looked into scratch the surface of it, but I know that our developers have said that this is going to be, important for what we're doing, on our DEX. But I think I probably am not qualified to talk about that.
That's fair. The reason I asked is because I didn't know, right?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of talk of it with our dev team, and they tell me it's important for launching our DEX components. But yeah, I probably need to go read a little bit more about how that particularly affects us.
So for this beta launch, is that going to be launched on a test net, or is it going to be a beta launch on mainnet?
It's going to be a public beta launch, with the proviso that the components are still being reiterated and that they're still being worked on. So it's going to be a beta in the traditional sense where we're expecting people, we'll probably have bug bounties, we're expecting people may encounter things that we need to smooth out. but it's going to give us this period where the DEX will be usable, and members of the public and our users can go ahead and make swaps on there. But it's still going to be in beta because we want to make sure that these newly created. I mean, they've been written totally from scratch. There's nothing we can copy here. If we're on Ethereum, we could probably go ahead and look at other docs from other dexes, but this is totally uncharted territory. So we want this 2-month period just to make sure that everything works smoothly and users can have like an enjoyable experience on the dex.
So, is there any are there any dexes that you guys use for inspiration? Any dexes on Ethereum? You just mentioned that you had to recreate everything, and that's because of Plutus and extended UTXO. But is there any design that you took from Ethereum to kind of?
I mean, I would say that in terms of the actual swap, like the swap interface, it's your typical easy to use UX and UI from the likes of Uniswap or PancakeSwap. But then in terms of like design, so how it actually looks, we're probably a little bit more like 1-inch exchange, a little bit of the darker colors and the like the come for a bit of a futuristic look. Also, like some of our devs, I think Connor from our dev team, had a chance to speak to some of the Sunday Swap guys. They have like a similar looking swap interface from what they've shown on social media. And yeah, it's really cool what they're building as well. So like we're following those guys pretty closely. And they've gone for more like, your traditional, like I do like their little Sunday ice cream emblem. They've gone for more like, the pancake swap type thing.
Yeah.
So I would say that in terms of how we look, you could think of it as like 1-inch exchange. But in terms of the actual UX and the user experience, that's going to be like just your typical swap capabilities. Yeah.
Okay. What about for the back end? Are you going to go with like traditional 50/50, liquidity providing?
Yeah, so we've actually already started these pools. We're gonna have liquidity provision through Occam X for all of the pools, like you would on Uniswap, like you would originate a pool, provide both sides of the liquidity. So that's going to be the same on Occam X. But we've already started this, and we already offer this functionality now through Occam Razor. So to help along some of the projects that are launching through us on secondary market trading. You can already provide liquidity for them through Occam X, Occam Razor, sorry. So you can go to the Occam Razor panel and then go to liquidity provision and do that there. But that's going to be linked to Occam X so that you can provide liquidity. So you can provide. So now you're providing like 1/2 ETH and the other half project tokens. We're going to allow users to provide 1/2 ADA and the other half Cardano native tokens. So it's going to be the same in principle, but it's going to be in Cardano. So hopefully reduce fees. It'll cost a lot less to provide liquidity, and then that can only bring the APY up in the short term.
So, is there anything that makes your DEX unique? You mentioned that you guys are really going for the Cardano approach, the slow and steady, make sure it's working right, and then launching with a beta. Is there anything unique as far as the technical aspects of your DEX? And I do agree. The style design that you guys went with is I like it, especially the new crossover to the DEX. How everything kind of switched a bit more light, which is what you have in your background. It looked really good. Besides the design, or is there anything unique, as far as the back end that your devs have mentioned?
So I mean, it would be cool to get some of our dev team to come and talk about that in a bit more detail. In terms of like, unique solutions, our solution to concurrency is proprietary. So we've created this solution. Eventually we may make the docs public, but at the moment, obviously, because we're building, in a silo, and we are like we do want to be one of the first dexes. This is kept under close wraps. But the way that we've approached concurrency, I already mentioned that we use an intra-block slot auction system. But
Can you explain that, how that works? Is that essentially users are auctioning on what price to pay to be in the DEX the soonest?
So we've got like a technical article on that one of our developers wrote. So that's on our Medium. He dives a little bit into what that actually looks like, from what it actually looks like on the back end. So it's
Yeah.
part of our technical series. We've got like a whole technical series on how we're building these components. But yeah, basically, so it batches transactions together. Off chain and then executes them all at once. So at the moment, there is like a centralized element to that. But like I say, we're working to bring that all decentralized. So it's, like a true DEX capability all on chain.
Okay.
And that's something quite unique that we're doing at the moment. And we are one of the few projects that have shown that we have that working solution to concurrency on YouTube. Yeah.
So Sunday Swap, they're actually using Stakepool operators to batch their transactions. So what they're doing is they're going to be selecting SPOs based on votes who run scoopers, and these scoopers, as you said, batch these transactions and then submit them all into one transaction to solve the concurrency problem. Will you guys be looking for SPOs to do that, or we'll be looking for like the Plutus application backend to do that in a decentralized way instead of.
I'm not sure actually is the truthful answer to that. I would have to go away and properly ask our devs. I think there has been, from the stuff that I've read so far. Obviously, we're not ready to announce any of this yet publicly, so I usually get the information when it's publicly available to release. But
Yeah,
there
as
has
the
been some talk.
communications guy, I think
Yeah,
that's the good way to do it, right?
but there definitely has been some talk about who would validate those transactions. So I'm guessing that would be Cardano Stakepool operators, like to validate the transactions on the Cardano blockchain. So we may be doing something similar to that. As I say, like I'm not 100% sure. I know that we've got a technical article coming up from Connor again, and I may ask him to address some of these questions that you've had today in this podcast. Because it'd be cool to get like a proper answer rather than my vague comms head on that.
Oh, no worries. No worries. I was just curious. Will the DEX, you mentioned the DEX will have its own token, correct? So will the DEX use the OCC token in any way?
So the OCX token is going to be our DEX token. So the only way to get OCX at the moment is to either stake ADA to one of our stake pools. So we run some Cardano stake pools, and we've got the first one, the ticker symbol is POCC. It doesn't emit ADA rewards, it only emits OCX rewards. So it's going to be a typical DEX token used for reducing fees and this sort of thing. But the other way that you can get it is to stake OCC tokens. So you can't actually go and buy OCX in an initial token sale or anything like that. You have to contribute to our ecosystem, and the main way of doing that, and the most rewarding way of doing that, is by staking OCC token. So the OCC token is going to transition more to like, obviously it's always going to be used to participate in our Launchpad. It's always going to have utility there, and the Launchpad is still one of our core components. But also the OCC token is going to be used as a traditional governance token. So we've actually just launched stake weighted voting. So we've launched our Occam improvement proposals. So anyone in our community can make proposals on what they want to see us do. And then they can go and use their OCC stake to vote on that via snapshot. So OCC is always going to have utility there and guiding what we do as a project. And have a pure governance function and also allow access to the Launchpad. But yeah, in terms of OCX is going to be like a separate token. The reason why we opted to launch a separate token was quite simple. If we had people staking, so we incentivize long-term staking of our OCC token to access staking rewards, which we offer through Occam X. We also offer CD rewards, which is like a ecosystem reward of tokens of like projects that IDO through us. We distribute some of their tokens to our token holders, and we also provide like it's the access, so it's actually like you have to stake a certain amount of OCC to get into the IDOs on Occam Razor. But staking for those mechanisms, which obviously we want people to do, if we were then to use the same token on our DEX where we want people to move in and out of liquidity staking, so maybe one day they'll be providing liquidity to an IDO that's just come through our platform, and then the next day or the next week, say, we want them to provide liquidity to the new, like a new project that's just launched, they would have to be staking and unstaking all the time. So realistically, we wanted a separate token that users could use to, provide liquidity on the DEX, lower fees, and the staking initiatives and incentives did require us to have two tokens. At the same time, we wanted to be absolutely sure that people couldn't just buy these tokens, because it's not, we don't want to raise money through OCX. We want it to be available for our early supporters and for people who continue to support our ecosystem, which is why at the moment it's only available through staking.
Okay. Is there anything else coming to the Occam ecosystem? An NFT marketplace? Currently you guys have a Launchpad and you're working on a DEX. Is there anything else that, in the distant future you have planned?
So we don't have any NFT stuff planned at the moment. We do work pretty closely with Theos, who is they're one of our incubator companies, accelerator companies, projects. And they've got a really cool NFT marketplace. So we're still looking to do some stuff with those guys. But probably one of the biggest milestones for us is obviously going to be the DEX. But then on top of that, we're going to have some expansion to the accelerator program. So we've thought for a long time, and I said there when we were talking about our ADA Stakepool, that we give out staking rewards in OCX, but obviously that Stakepool generates ADA. The ADA that we generate from that Stakepool will be taken and put into our accelerator incubator. So we'll use the ADA rewards that are generated by people delegating their ADA to our pool to actually launch new projects on Cardano. So Accelerator is going to be much bigger in the future. We sort of see it as a logical extension from Catalyst. So projects that are looking to build and launch for Cardano can come through Catalyst. They can find a proof of, validate their proof of concept through Catalyst and through community votes, find access to that first round of funding, and then when they want to really build and expand their team and project, they could come to Accelerator. We would give them that initial, help to set up and incorporate legally, define their tokenomics, and then give them those early funds and development resources that they need to do a full launch on Cardano all the way through to an IDO. So that's going to be much bigger in the future. We've already had I think 4 or 5 accelerator projects, DeFi, Card Wallet, Theos, and Centurify as well are accelerator project. But we're going to hopefully have a lot more in the future of these early stage Cardano projects that really need just that extra step up to get ahead and launch on Cardano. And we want it to be a self-sustaining ecosystem whereby the ADA that we get delegated to us and the fees that we generate can go directly back into bringing new projects into Cardano. So we're really looking to grow the ecosystem.
So there actually is projects can use the Launchpad without being in the accelerator program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so some of the projects that come to us, the easy way to put it is they don't particularly need our help in that regard. So, Ardana, for instance, awesome project. They already had so much development activity, so much going on already, and really all they needed to do was launch that IDO. So there was no need for them to enter into the accelerator program. But say Ardana had come through with just the idea for Ardana, and they only had access to a few developers, but they hadn't incorporated, they hadn't set up a legal entity yet, they hadn't defined their tokenomics yet. We could help them do that and then launch them through Occam Razor. But yeah, it's not a requirement for projects to come through the accelerator program. If they've already got, recently a really good example was we IDO'd Open Rights Exchange. They're looking to build out some Cardano components now, but they've actually been running for 3 years without a token. So, I mean, those guys already had everything in place. They didn't really need our help on that side. They just needed to launch their token. So we helped them do that.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today, Elliot. Is there anything in this podcast that we didn't mention that you want to get out there?
I think that's it, really. I mean, I would probably encourage people and just give a shout out to go and check out Centurify, NewNet, and Ycrypt. There are three upcoming projects this month. They've all got a really laser sharp focus on Cardano, and they want to build for Cardano. And obviously, NewNet is backed by SingularityNet. But other than that, yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody watching. If you made it to the end, I'd really appreciate if you commented Occam down below to let us know you made it till the end. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.